Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm Tiffany, a retired librarian turned homeschool mom. And in this video, we're going to be talking about another Christmas book, another secular Christmas book, because again, not religious channel. And this is from the same author as The Wizard of Oz. Joining us this evening is a calico. That is my lap cat. She is almost 12. I brought her home from Romania. She can be very vicious. She's also about 10 pounds. She's getting very fat. She's a very fat cat. So we're going to be talking about the life and adventures of Santa Claus, which is written by L Frank Baum, same author as The Wizard of Oz, a secular Christmas story, and a different take on the history of Santa Claus. So in this story, when Santa Claus was a baby, he was abandoned outside the forest of Burzy. And the great Ak, who's a kind of a world, I don't know, he's a giant, he's a fairy. I think it's the best way to explain what he is. He finds this baby. It's about to be eaten by a mountain lion. And he stops it and has her rescue it and feed it. And why he's telling this to the queen of the forest of Burzy is overheard by, I believe, one of a little fairy by the name of Necile. And she goes to find the baby and brings the baby into the forest and wants to be a mother to the baby. And so she's given permission to raise this little human. Now he's mortal. These are immortals. And she calls him Claus, which means little one. So that becomes his name. His name is Claus. And it goes throughout his babyhood where he's raised by the fairies and the various nooks and creatures of the forest. He learns various animal languages and he eats fruits and berries. So he grows up in this forest. And when he hits roughly about, I think, 16-ish, he becomes a teenager. The great Ak returns and decides to show him humanity. So he has him hold on to his belt and shows him the world. The time period around here is Middle Ages. Is where the story, the start of this story kind of takes place. So humanity is few. They're not a huge population quite yet, and it's very feudal. So he shows him, you have the poor farmers and you have the older people, and he shows them the innocence of the children and then of course the adults. And the great Ak has a spot in his heart for children, obviously, because he rescued Claus rather than letting him freeze to death. So he brings Claus back, and Claus, again, similar to the great Ak, has a spot in his heart for children. But Claus leaves to the Laughing Valley, I believe is where he goes. That's the name of it. Yes, he moves to, let's see, where is it? Yes, the Laughing Valley. So that's where he goes, and then the fairies and stuff build him a home, and he starts carving just toys. And he's basically the inventor of toys, and he starts delivering these toys to the different children in the nearby town. And then time passes. There are other children who want toys, and he's making children happy. So then you have the first kind of adversity where you have these creatures called the Awgwas, and the Awgwas they like to give children ideas to do naughty things. Essentially, it's how it's phrased. And they don't like Claus because he makes children happy. So they kidnap him. They try to get rid of him. Claus calls on friends to help him, and the Awgwas have stolen his toys, but he's able to get back to his home, and the great Ak is ticked off. Because the Awgwas, which they're not mortal, they're not really immortal. So when they die, they just kind of disappear. So the great Ak is ticked off because they interfered with a friend of his. And so they go to war with the great Awgwas, and the Awgwas are destroyed. So then in order to be safe, one of the nooks allows Claus to be aided by two deer by the name of Glossy and Flossy. And he's able to deliver the toys by air. And he's starting to go down chimneys. So that's when this begins. But he can only do it once a year. So they choose to do it on Christmas Eve. And so he's going once a year and basically delivering toys, all slowly starting to do it all over the world. And then kids would put stockings near the fireplace to dry. So that's where they say the idea of putting the stockings to dry comes from. Is he would when he was sticking the stockings to dry in the fireplace, he put toys in them. So the idea of stockings. And then time passes. Obviously, he's mortal. He grows old. So the great act, when death is coming near, the great act gathers the various leaders of the fairy people. And at the beginning of time, they had this mantle of immortality. So the ability to once, in all of Earth's existence, to grant immortality to a mortal. But it has to be a unanimous decision. So the great act tells the story of Santa Claus and how he's essentially the patron of children. And he brings joy to young children and the innocents. And they agree to grant him immortality and essentially chase death away, because he was essentially the spirit of death was coming for him. So they give him the mantle of immortality and he becomes immortal and proceeds to become Santa Claus. And he's traveling all over the world with the reindeer and moving on. Now, one of the things happens. So they take on, he is given the few friends to really help him. A fairy by the name of Whisk, a Nook by the name of Peter, and a pixie by the name of Kilter, and then a Ryle, which is another creature by the name of Nutter. So these guys are actually important in a short story that Baum writes called A Kidnapped Santa Claus, which kind of, I believe Santa Claus is kidnapped by a couple of demons. Now I'll go over that because that's a separate thing. That's not in this book. That is actually a short story, and I will cover that separately in a different short video. So again, Santa Claus is now immortal. And the rest of the book, which I literally just finished publishing, which is kind of interesting, it goes on into time passes. So as a lot of us know, the industrial age happened. Chimneys started going away. And so what happened was Santa Claus couldn't go down the chimneys anymore. It's like, what do I do? How can I can't deliver toys this way. So the fairy and the Nook and the pixie, they go along with him and they can magically appear into homes. So that's how that's how they explain how he's delivering presents now, is he has these little helpers who are with him and they take the presents and they go into the homes because they have magical powers. And Santa Claus doesn't. He's a former mortal who's just now immortal. He's no magic there. So, and that's kind of the explanation they have. And again, he's pretty much, you don't see him anymore because he's busy. He's busy making toys for for people all over the world. He also sometimes just leaves the toys for parents to take care of their children with, like filling the stockings and stuff. That's his little explanation for that. So now that parents are more concerned with their children, basically Santa Claus enlists their help to an extent. So that is L Frank Baum's take on the Santa Claus story. So it's the life and adventures of Santa Claus. I love the story. I was actually first introduced to it. The film, they have I believe it's stop motion animation. It was, the Rankin and Bass stop motion animation. I will actually cover that. It actually sticks pretty close to the book. That's from 1985. So that's how I was introduced to the story. I've read the book. It's a very good story. It's a very good book. Definitely recommend around Christmas time. It's something you can read in pieces, like typical L Frank Baum books. They're good read aloud books. And again, it's a secular thing because it's not religious whatsoever. So that is the Life and Adventures of Santa Claus by L Frank Baum. That is it for this review. I have a bunch of other reviews. This is a secular channel, so I don't do religious Christmas stories. All my other Christmas stories are non-religious. I have a bunch of other book reviews, travel stuff, homeschooling stuff. We are a homeschooling family. So check out my other reviews, like and subscribe if you want to see more. Thank you.